All right, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Just thought I'd jump on really quickly just to cover some of the latest news. It seems as though Penny Mordaunt has dropped out of the race for the Tory leadership, which means that uh, Rishi Sunak is the de facto winner of the contest, making him the next prime minister. There is no contest. There is no choice or vote to be cast, really. So I think what the language that they're using is that there will be a coronation, basically making Rishi Sunak prime minister this afternoon. So what I'm going to do is there's a live Sky News feed which will follow in a moment. I'll provide a little bit of commentary because we need to talk about what that means for the budget on the 31st. That feels as though that can go ahead as usual. And we're also going to talk about what that might mean for the Bank of England meeting on the 3rd of November around interest rates. So let's just go straight over to Sky News right now. They're in Parliament. They're in Parliament speaking to ministers.
Saying that you could not have one wing of the party in cabinet as Liz Truss and Boris Johnson had done to devastating effect for both of them in the end. But just going back,
we are a coalition, and we've got to coalesce.
Going back to that coalition, Bob, and you're always honest, and I'd like you to be honest now. The bloodletting in the party in July, ousting Boris Johnson, and then in the awful of affairs of the past few weeks, which I think has left the country agog as well as many MPs. Is it recoverable? I mean, how hard is it going to be for Rishi? He's got one hell of a job on his hands, hasn't he?
It is recoverable. People like me, the stuff that gets me out of bed, and all my Red Wall colleagues, is delivering for folks in our constituencies. For me, that's the folks on the Isle of Wight, whether it's building a new hospital, or getting the railway pier rebuilt, or getting a special needs school. So it's all about delivering for our folks. So that's what we've got to focus on. I will just remind you of one quote. Ronald Reagan, former US president, first rule of conservative politics, thou shalt not speak ill of other conservatives. So to all my colleagues, let's stop.
I think everyone hasn't got the memo.
Then Beth, I'm going to lead by example.
Yeah.
Hats off to Rishi, fantastic job. Let's get out there, let's make this work. Look, it's great, we've got our first British Asian Prime Minister, let's celebrate that, and let's smash Labour at the next election.
Final question, Penny Mordaunt.
Actually, let's capture this.
Did you speak to her ahead of her concession?
I haven't spoken to her in the last half an hour.
How do you think she'll be feeling? Pretty gutted?
Look, not being in the race to be Prime Minister, she'd love to still be in the race. What's important now? We've got a clear winner. We've got to come together. We have got to unite. And, we are going to. So come next spring, come next summer, all this in the last few weeks, last couple of months, I think, inshallah, it is going to be a distant dream.
Is it recoverable, though?
Yes.
Do you think...
So it's interesting to see the change in sentiment, the change in language. If you go back to last Friday, all of them were swearing. They were saying, we don't care anymore. This is just a shambles, to pivoting to the language that they're using now, not speaking ill of others, pulling together all this kind of stuff. People will feel, I guess, enthused and equally negative about this, right? In the fact that this isn't an ideal situation. But I do think that it is important to note the difference. And look, more than anything else right now, we need a parliament, we need a government that is going to pull together and not be divisive and not have all of this infighting amongst them, because they need to focus on doing the right thing for the people, for the nation. And that's what I hope that they're going to be able to do. I really should have put a bet on the lottery or something like that, or gone to the bookies or something, because I said this last week on Thursday when Liz resigned, that Rishi was going to be the next person. And not saying that I predicted it, but hey, sometimes you can tell these things. Let's carry on.
Do you think the party could win the next general election?
Yes. We have an 80
Do you actually believe that?
For sure. We have an 80-seat majority. And we won a really big...
Right now you do.
Behind in the polls. And Liz Truss has arguably trashed the brand.
Well,
fair, unfair?
I think that's unfair on Liz. I think she went too far too fast. And what I'm going to do is work with the Cabinet, work with the Prime Minister to make sure we rebuild our brand. For most of the last 200 years, Beth, we have a reputation for competence and leadership. We're going to get that back.
Bob Seeley, MP for the beautiful Isle of Wight, where I was a summer or two ago. Thank you very much for coming on Sky News. So there you have it, both a Sunak backer and a Mordaunt backer saying there, so I'm just checking my phone because it's buzzing away and I haven't been able to, saying there that the party has to unite around Rishi Sunak. Rishi Sunak is the new leader of the Conservative Party. He's going to be the next Prime Minister. We're going to hear from him at 2:30 today. You heard a lot from him over the summer about what he wanted to do as Prime Minister, but now we've got to...
Now, if he's going to be speaking at 2:30, I'm going to be very, very keen to pay attention to his phraseology, the words that he's using, what he's basically saying, because a large portion of this is going to be about, number one, unity, number two, credibility, and number three, competence. Those three things are going to be so, so important. So it'll be interesting to listen into his speech at 2:30 to see what the language is actually going to be. But looking at the currencies right now, let's have a look and see where the pound is. Someone in the comments just said that the pound is down slightly. Let me just find it. Where are we? Currencies, GBP USD, 112. So it's down about 0.16% at the minute. It was at 113 earlier today, but the FTSE is actually up. So we'll see how the markets basically react through the back end of the day, entering into tomorrow, because I think that there should be a positive rebound now that we know that Rishi is going to be the Prime Minister, and it will be interesting to see if it plays out that way. But let's just carry on listening.
To hear a bit more about that in terms of his economic policies. Basically, Liz Truss has had to reverse everything she wanted to do that was in conflict with Rishi Sunak, and Jeremy Hunt, the new Chancellor, has basically implemented much of a Sunak programme on economy, on the politics of all of this. People today saying we've got to unite. This is a party scarred by the awful events of recent weeks, anointing a Prime Minister on September the 6th, only to then oust her a few weeks later after 44 days in office, the shortest serving Prime Minister ever, and now a sense that the ship really has to pull together again and the infighting has to stop. My big question is that despite the voices coming on camera saying it will, how will that work? We know that Boris Johnson had publicly 59 backers. Yes, many of them have flipped to Rishi Sunak, but the Johnson team putting out a statement actually saying that his 102 nominations had been independently verified by the 1922 committee. What does that tell you? Rishi Sunak might have the majority of the party, but there is a big group of MPs that wanted Johnson, and will they forgive Rishi Sunak, and will they be able to come back together? In the end, divided parties do not win elections, so let's see, can the Conservative Party now regroup after the man that members rejected only in July?
OK, Beth, I'm going to let you have a little breather there to check your phone. Lots of reaction to this breaking news coming in. Penny Mordaunt withdrawing from the Conservative leadership race, which effectively makes Rishi Sunak on the verge of becoming the next Prime Minister. He is the new leader of the Conservative Party as of this afternoon. He will have to have an audience with the King. We all know the choreography. We saw it fairly recently. He will have to go and meet King Charles, and he will then become the country's new Prime Minister. Let's just bring you Penny Mordaunt's statement. It was released just moments before Sir Graham Brady came in to address the 1922 committee to say that there was only one name on that ballot paper. Penny Mordaunt said this: "Our party is our membership, whether we are elected representatives, activists, fundraisers or supporters. We all have a stake in who our leader is. These are unprecedented times. Despite the compressed timetable for the leadership contest, it is clear that colleagues feel we need certainty today. They have taken this decision in good faith for the good of the country. Members should know that this proposition has been fairly and thoroughly tested by the agreed 1922 process. As a result, we have now chosen our next Prime Minister. This decision is an historic one and shows once again the diversity and talent of our party. Rishi has my full support. I am proud of the campaign we ran and grateful to all those across all sides of our party who gave me their backing. We all owe it to the country, to each other and to Rishi to unite and work together for the good of the nation. There is much work to be done. So, Beth, the attitude of the Conservative Party now seems to be, right, we've done this.
All right, so someone's just put into the chat section here, which I'm just going to highlight in a moment. I just want to highlight a few things though. So Kiki is actually watching, not from the UK. Where are you? Are you in? Did you say you're in Norway, Kiki? Welcome. But someone's just basically just asked here, if I can just find it, when's the next budget? So the timeline is that we were due to get further detail of the budget on October 31st. So now that there isn't going to be further contests or votes, and we know that Rishi is probably going to get confirmed as Prime Minister today, maybe tomorrow morning at the latest, it is likely that we're still going to be on the same time track or timeline for the details of the budget on October 31st, which is, I believe, next Monday. Is that next Monday? 31st of October. Yeah, next Monday. So we're going to have details there. Now, if you followed the live yesterday, the streams that I did yesterday, the next really important date is going to be November 3rd, because that's when the Bank of England and the Monetary Policy Committee are going to meet around interest rates. So really, really important dates. I think that there will be an interest rate hike in November, on November 3rd, which obviously is going to have an impact on mortgage rates, all this kind of stuff. But I would imagine that Andrew Bailey and the members of the Monetary Policy Committee, the MPC, are going to want to know the details of the budget on the 31st. And as long as that's signed off and it balances and it's got the tick of approval from the Office of Budget Responsibility, we shouldn't see any massive economic shifts like we did with the mini budget the last time round. So October 31st is the big date, essentially, followed by November 3rd. What's going to be interesting to look at between now and then is market sentiment, market confidence. Are the markets going to react positively to this news? I think they will. The FTSE's up, the pound is a little bit down. Is the bond market going to move? Now, earlier today, the bond market was still pretty good, pretty decent. Are we going to see any negative moves in the bond market? If we do see negative moves in the bond market, and then the pound starts to slide because of it, then okay, maybe this experiment isn't going to work. But the early indications are that it should be okay. Famous last words, right?
Let's get on with it.
Yes, that's right, Sarah Jane. And I'm now with George Freeman. Now, George was a key backer of Penny Mordaunt, but appeared to be wobbling this morning in a message that he sent out about national unity, sort of implying, I think, that Penny Mordaunt should stand aside. George, that was your intention, wasn't it?
Yeah, I wasn't wobbling. I simply felt that my advice to Penny has been in the last 24 hours, look, this country needs unity and stability, as she has said. And given that Boris has pulled out, given the markets are febrile and they're looking for stability, I would urge her to fold in with Rishi now in a unity ticket. She's going to have to do it on Friday anyway.
Yeah.
I think she had the 100
numbers. So did
you
think she wouldn't win the membership vote? Interesting.
Well, either way, whoever won it, they were both committed to working together. I think she would have had the 100, and I think she might well have won. But I'm just not sure right now that is what the country needs. It needs stability and unity, and I'm not sure a TV hustings, a big debate, blue on blue is at all helpful as we want to get to a point of unity and stability.
And so did you tell her that this morning,
yes,
George? And what did she say? What does she say?
Her view was, and I respect this, that for real stability, you need the grassroots of the Conservative Party to feel that...
To kick the tyres.
That they have been part of the process. And I think that is a very honourable and perfectly legitimate view. My own view, I canvassed my association this morning, my executive and my councillors. They were overwhelmingly, the message was, it's you MPs who've got to come together, back somebody, unite behind them and bring the stability we need. Don't give us a contest. So that was just my association. I appreciate there are others who feel a different way.
Did you not...
It's an interesting thing that he's just mentioned there. Just to answer this question from Sinead, We don't know. I would assume that he'll maybe keep Jeremy Hunt, but we don't know. I mean, as the new prime minister, he has the right to guess put together a cabinet of his choosing. One thing that someone has mentioned before is that because he needs to thrive and work towards unifying that party, which is quite fractious right now, that he's going to have to call upon people who maybe didn't actually, support him through the rounds of this leadership, and not just this one, the one before as well, where Liz actually won. So there needs to be a unifying element to it. So he may need to call on people from the other side of the Tory party to be included in that cabinet in order to unite everyone. So we don't know whether Jeremy Hunt is going to stay. I'll probably hazard a guess that he will stay because he's already under work and doing what is necessary to put together a budget. So I think so. There's a good chance, but we just don't know for sure just yet. We have to watch this space. But one thing that they've mentioned here is that a lot of people who will be watching this will be a little miffed how there isn't a hustings, there isn't a debate, there isn't a vote there, and they've just kind of made him the de facto winner, right? And I think there will be a lot of frustration around how does this even work? We, the people, didn't get to choose, but that's what the parliamentary system does. The MPs represent their constituents, and they then have the right to be able to vote in who they think is appropriate to carry the party forward, to carry the nation forward, if you will. And that's kind of what we've seen here. But it's nice finally to see them talking about working together in opposed to all of this infighting and this school kid playground, because we don't need any of that right now. We really just need someone who's going to be able to try and fix all of this stuff. The coming weeks will tell. I mean, whether they're going to be able to get their act together. I hope that they do. I really, really hope that they do. But who knows?
I feel, though, that given you've just said that, given that Penny probably would have stood if she did get the numbers, I think I've been told that she was just shy of the 100 and that she would have stood. This is unfinished business then for the party membership. There could be a bit of a backlash over this.
Certainly not what I've picked up from my association, who aren't, who are very quick to tell me what they think. They're have very strong opinions. That's not at all the view I've picked up. And I think when you see Suella Braverman, Kemi Badenoch, Steve Baker, all backing Rishi yesterday, that tells me that this party is coming together.
And the party coming together, how unhelpful was the Johnson dash back from the Caribbean and floating whether he would or wouldn't stand? That was quite disruptive for the party over the weekend. Unhelpful, would you say, or what?
I think it was quite disruptive, quite sort of classic Boris in a way. But I think in the end, it has helped.
Classic Boris?
Well, he was aware.
Let me just pause this really quickly because there's some really good questions that are coming through here that I think are important. So, Zero, I think on the last stream yesterday, I think you asked this, that I logged off and I saw it as I logged off. So, their yearly bond, 9.6%. The Americans work on a completely different fiscal policies than we do. So, I can't see this happening in the UK because it's a completely different economy. It's a completely different set of fiscal outlooks. Economic outlooks, to say the least. So I don't see that being something that we will do. You just can't set a bond rate at 9.6%. There are things that go into it. And then obviously within America, you have 30-year treasury bonds. You have 20-year treasury bonds. You have different variations of them. So it really depends on which of their variation of bond is set at this, but this isn't something that we can just copy and lift over into the UK. We can't do that. There's this question as well. Hope you're doing well. Keeping up stuff with the subs. Do you see an impact in the terms of UK attractiveness for large international institutional investors with all the political instability? Yes. So look, whenever there is political instability or economic instability, then yes, that's always going to be, I guess, a deciding factor as to whether or not international companies actually want to come here to invest. Now, we spoke about the mini budget and some of the stuff that is basically been scrapped. As a growth budget, I said that there were some really good things in there. Stamp duty, great. Low investment zones, great. Doing something around IR35 for freelancers, great. There were some other things in there that were good from a growth agenda point of view, right? But I think for companies, corporation tax, those kind of things are big deciders as to whether or not it's worthwhile investing into the UK. We don't know what the new budget is going to look like. We do know that there are going to be tax hikes. We do know that there are likely going to be spending cuts as well in order to balance the book. But instability is not good for attracting international investment by other companies. You want to be as stable as possible. But on top of that, you also need to give them an incentive. And that's where you run into a little bit of trouble given where we are right now, because how do you incentivize international companies or wealthy investors to come into the country to invest here when they could go to, I don't know, Germany, for example, or they could go to Dubai, for example? What's the incentive for them to come here? So now that Rishi's going to be prime minister, if everyone in the Tory party kind of pulls together and gives this united front, that's going to signal stability. That will be, I guess, evidenced in the bond markets, in the markets in general, the value of the pound versus the dollar. But that stability is going to be really, really important because we need market confidence right now. And hopefully that's what we're going to get in the next week or so and moving through the next few months in the run up to a general election in 2 years' time. But that is crucial. It's crucial for us to be able to attract international investors, for sure.
Away, flying back from holiday at a time of crisis, and the sort of disheveled Boris at the airport coming back for the moment. But I think in a funny way, it helped everyone to realise that this is a new problem we face. It's international financial credibility. The markets are jittered, and Boris isn't the answer to that, and he doesn't bring the stability that we need. So, funny enough, I think actually, in a way, that circus during the weekend has focused a lot of people's minds on what stability and unity.
So again, listen to the language that they're using: stability, confidence. All of this is needed. It's theatre at the end of the day. It's positioning, it's framing, but it's nice to actually hear them in contrast to last Friday, where they were swearing and getting at each other's throats. For them to be speaking in this way, that should give people a little bit of confidence. And it may not be the perfect solution. It may not be the perfect situation for people. People are very disillusioned right now with the political system of what's been happening. But we are where we are, and we're stuck with this for the time being. So I think we need to try and make the best out of a worse situation. And it's nice to hear them use these words, use these phrases, because we're going to need it moving forward.
He really looks like.
So you think Boris Johnson wasn't up to it, not up to the job?
I don't think he could provide the unity and stability that we need right now. I mean, I think I think history will judge him as having achieved some huge things. I won't list them all now, but I just think now his closest friends and advisors were telling him, "You're not what we need right now, Boris."
Oh, so you think he was advised by his close team to stand aside?
Yeah.
Who told him that?
Well, many of them some of them have gone on the media and said, "Look, I very strongly, Johnny Mercer, for example, he's a very good friend, and I backed him before, but I think it's not his moment." So I think a number of them have said that to him, and I think he could see, and I'm glad he did see that. For all his virtues, he wouldn't be the force for unity at the moment.
And George, the reason I asked that as well is that part of Rishi Sunak's problem back in July was that those that supported Johnson felt he was responsible for Johnson's demise, and they were immovable. They were so viciously, vehemently anti-Rishi Sunak. That is still going to be a problem for him, isn't it? You've got a working majority of, just over 70. If 35 MPs are just refuseniks, Sunak can't get anything through the House. It's got to be an issue still, huh?
Well, I don't think any Prime Minister in the Conservative Party ever has had absolute full and loyal support of every MP. And in fact, for 30 years before we came into power in 2010, there was a rump of Conservative MPs who were always unhappy. I think the big thing I would say is that when you see yesterday Kemi Badenoch, Suella Braverman, Steve Baker from the ERG, from the right, coming in behind Rishi, that's a very powerful statement, and I am absolutely sure he will build a cabinet of all the talents.
George, I think I'm being told that we're going to have to come off air. Is that correct? Sorry. Thank you so much,
Pleasure.
George Freeman. We're going to have to throw back to you, SJ, because I think the Speaker's coming through to open the House, and I'm definitely not allowed to be on camera when that happens. So back to you.
It's interesting what they're talking about there in terms of not necessarily having the backing of all of the MPs in the Tory party. I think that's really, really interesting. And I said it, I think it was last night when Boris Johnson actually poured out that, did he really have 102 MPs backing him? And maybe I was speculating that maybe he withdrew to save face. Because I just don't know. I mean, I don't want to make this party positive or in aid of any particular party, because this is not what this is about. It's about how this is going to affect markets and ultimately those of you who are watching this stream and follow this channel, because all of this has a knock-on effect to any help that we're going to get for energy come next year. The next forecast is that energy prices will go up by 74% in April. So this is going to have a material impact on that. It's going to have a material impact on interest rates, rent going up, mortgages going up, the cost of debt, servicing your debt, all increasing. It's going to have a massive impact on a lot of things. And so was Boris the right person to be in this position in the first place? Probably not. I mean, the fact that it was even a consideration, it was even something that we were looking at, was for me a little bit laughable. And you think about us, on a world stage of how we look, it didn't bode well. And this is the stuff that we need to try and, I guess, recover as much as we possibly can. And whether we will be able to or not is another thing altogether. We just don't know. But I'm really, really keen to hear Rishi's speech, what he's going to say and how he's going to frame. So yeah, but guys, just before we continue on this, again, if you are enjoying the stream, I've had great feedback around these things. The one way that you can really, really help me is by engaging with the video and liking the video as well. It just means that when this stream actually comes to an end and I need to be off here by 3:00 because I actually have a meeting at 3:00, YouTube will push this out to other people who may find this information interesting. So there's, over 60 of you here at the moment. We've currently got the likes at about 30. If you can smash that like button, let's get up to maybe 40, 45. That will be amazing. I'm just going to refresh the screen very, very quickly and just see where we are at the minute on news.
Chancellor, not least in safeguarding 1 in 3 Scottish jobs during the pandemic through the furlough scheme, Rishi Sunak is uniquely well equipped for that task. So reaction from Scotland to the announcement that Rishi Sunak is going to be the next Prime Minister. Let's bring in our political editor, Beth Rigby, who is in Central Lobby in Parliament, getting reaction to that news that came in around half an hour or so ago. Beth?
Yes, that's right, SJ. And the breaking news, the main news for the entire country as well as the Conservative Party is that Rishi Sunak has been selected unopposed. There's no runoff here as the next leader of the Conservative Party, and that means he's the country's next Prime Minister. Now, what's he up to at the moment? He's upstairs in that room above us. He's addressing MPs. We haven't seen him yet, the new Prime Minister, the next Prime Minister. We haven't seen him, but I think we are going to get a statement from him on camera at some point later today. What does a new Conservative Party leader typically do? Well, typically what they will do is that they win the ballot with Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak. You remember it was a big staged event with hundreds of people, party members and MPs in the room as Liz Truss was announced that she was the winner of the members' poll. That was but September the 5th. For Rishi Sunak, it's been announced in a different way just amongst the parliamentary party. I imagine what we'll see later today is he will go to Conservative campaign headquarters. This is what every new Conservative leader does. And then I think what we will see tomorrow, perhaps, is the handover of power. That's when Liz Truss formally exits number 10, has an audience with the King, and then the new Prime Minister has an audience with the King and makes that journey from Buckingham Palace to the podium podium outside in the street, and he will address the nation. I think we will see him a bit later on camera today, but what a moment this is. Rishi Sunak, he was down and out July, he was out of cabinet, he was back on the backbenches. There were questions about whether or not he would even remain as a Prime Minister. He now becomes the youngest Prime Minister since the Napoleonic Wars at the end of the 18th century. Pitt the Younger was the only one that was younger than him. I think he's just 42 years old, even younger than me, sadly for me, huh? He is the first British Asian Prime Minister. He's the first practicing Hindu as Prime Minister. This really is a groundbreaking moment for the country in so many ways, but it's also controversial because he has been made Prime Minister, the third Conservative Prime Minister since the 2019 general election. We had Boris Johnson, then Liz Truss, then Rishi Sunak. Opposition parties are saying this is not acceptable. He doesn't have a mandate to take over, and they are calling for a general election. I think Rishi Sunak's message will be to try and beat that off. His message will be...
I mean, look, they do have a point, right? I mean, because at the end of the day, I did a poll last week on, should we have a general election? It was an overwhelming yes. I think if you ask any member of the public right now, the sentiment is we should just go to a general election and let that be that and just end all of this. But with the parliamentary system, it is the Tories' gift to grant a general election or not. It's for them to call a general election. Nobody can veto them. No one can overrule their decision to do so. And the euphemism that someone used yesterday that I quite liked was, a turkey is not going to call Christmas on itself. Same principles apply. If you're going to be dinner, you're not going to skip to dinner quickly. You're going to try and put that off as much as possible. And, as much as this is, a monumental kind of like time. I mean, he is going to be the first Indian Prime Minister, British Prime Minister that in our history, the youngest, 42 years old. This hasn't happened before. And then you can ask the question of, would he have been elected if these kind of circumstances didn't conspire for it to happen? Who knows? But I think, again, we're in a really bad situation and we've got to try and make the best of a bad situation. I think the general sentiment is that he is the best pair of hands, and he hasn't got a perfect track record. Definitely not. I don't know anyone who's got a perfect track record in anything, but he does understand the markets. In most of the things that you ever see him do, he does have that air of professionalism, competence. So I'm hoping, and we should all hope, that this carries through in the task that he has ahead, because if he fails, we fail. We have a material impact. There is a material impact on us. But who knows? This is...
that he will
have to wait and see.
According to the 2019 manifesto, one of Liz Truss's big mistakes was to try and divert from a manifesto with her parliamentary party saying, hang on a minute, Liz Truss, you don't have the mandate. So we haven't heard what Rishi Sunak's saying to MPs now. I imagine he will be talking about what he intends to do on the economy. What's he going to do on the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill? You saw earlier that the European Research Group, that's a big part of what they care about. What's he going to do on immigration policy? What's he going to do on tax and spend? And how is he going to unite the party? The first thing I think for MPs will be politically whether or...
Out of everything she just said there, the thing that normal people are going to be interested in is what he's going to do on tax and spending. That's what we want to know. That's what I want to know. What is he going to do on tax and spending? Because forget party unity. Yes, that's nice to have because it's that air of confidence and reassuring the markets. But everyday people, tax and spending, what is he going to do? What call is he going to make? Because it is a difficult call to make and we need to know. So that's what I'm interested in. That's probably what you're interested in as well.
Whether or not he creates that broad church within his cabinet. What did he say, though, when he was standing to be leader, when he made that announcement over the weekend, only when he was well past the 100 MPs supporting him mark? He said he wanted to unite the party and deliver for his country. He said he'd served as Chancellor, helping to steer the economy through the toughest of times. He said as well, the challenges we face now are even greater, but the opportunities to make the right choice, if we do, are phenomenal. He said there will be integrity, professionalism and accountability at every level of the government I lead, and I will work day in, day out to get the job done. The big unknown.
What she just said there about what he said about professionalism through every structure, I would 100% believe that for sure, because he just comes across as that kind of guy. Stephen just asked here, if he hasn't got full support of the party, can he do anything? Well, if now that he's here and considering how much they've messed things up, if he doesn't have the full support of the party to the point that he can't actually do anything, then they're signing their own death warrant. So at this point in time, the party, the Tories they don't have any choice. They have to back him, which is why you're seeing a lot of the language change from last Friday, where they're talking about, we don't care, this is a farce, we don't care anymore. The language has now changed. You're hearing people that were even supporting Boris Johnson talking about unity now, because they know they cannot afford to get this wrong now. And if they do, general elections are going to be up. That's going to be the end of them for the foreseeable future when it comes to ever getting into power again. They will recognize from a party point of view that this is their very, 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 very last chance to try and redeem themselves. And I hope that fear in them will push them to do the right thing, and push them to make the right choices, push them to put the interest of the country ahead of their own little selfish little political games that they play within Parliament, because it's number one, annoying, it's embarrassing, and it just sucks. It really, really does. So hopefully they'll pull their fingers out of their behinds and actually get some work done.
Known, of course, is will the parliamentary party in the end let him? After all the bloodletting, can they come back together? There have been positive soundings in my initial conversations with MPs, but don't underestimate what a vicious period this has been in the history of the Conservative Party, and what a battle this Prime Minister has ahead, not just politically, but look what's happening to the economy. Problems exacerbated, problems of rising inflation and interest rates exacerbated by that disastrous Liz Truss mini budget. And now he has the immediate task of trying to steady the ship and give those big fiscal plans, give those big forecasts, and also announce what he's going to do on tax and spend in a week's time.
And that's what everyone's going to be, their eyes are going to be on: the budget in a week's time, tax and spending. That's where he's going to show his full hand there. And look, Jeremy Hunt throughout last week was talking about the fact that there needs to be some very, very difficult decisions to be made. And that's going to scare the bejesus out of a lot of people when we look at austerity and everything that's happened since 2010 through today. You know, the cuts in policing, the cuts in all of those services that are so intrinsic to a country functioning. If there's going to be even further cuts being taken to what is already pretty slim pickings, people are going to be worried, and I'm worried for people. And, you know, if you're in a community where you haven't really had much in the last 12 odd years, well, guess what? There's more coming down the line. But he's going to show his hand next Monday. He's going to show the extent of what he wants to do. And it's interesting because on Tuesday, tomorrow, the video that I've scheduled for tomorrow actually reacts to another video highlighting a really big problem that none of these parties are actually speaking about right now. And the thumbnail may be a little bit provocative, but the content of that video is really, really important. And who it's coming from, he's very, very qualified to speak of this, because we can only start speaking about austerity cuts and cutting spending when there are tax opportunities that we should be taken advantage of. And I don't mean taxing normal people, low-income people. That's not even being considered right now. And it will be interesting to see what he actually announces next week. Will he be bold? Will he be brave? Will he think radically? Will he do something that is unexpected in the aid of trying to fix this? That we don't know. If he does, and it depends on what he announces, hopefully we'll see a positive market reaction. The problem is that if he is radical in his thinking and he is brave enough in his thinking to introduce something that is new, we run the danger that it 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 kind of goes along the same lines as what happened with Liz and her mini budget. I don't think that he's stupid enough to do something like that, but I hope he is going to be brave. I hope that he is going to do something different because I think we need something different right now. But it's anyone to guess what's going to happen. But the two dates, October 31st, next Monday, then November the 3rd, which will be the Wednesday, going to be really, really important in terms of the detail of what's going to happen next. And those are the key things. I was hoping to actually hear him speak, but we're now kind of running up to 3 o'clock, and I actually have a meeting in about 10 minutes. I'll probably jump on a little bit later on to provide a little bit more commentary once he's actually spoken. But I appreciate you guys for just coming on and actually watching this with me and getting some thoughts and interacting via the chat as well. Just as a reminder, you can really help me out by getting those likes up. So there's just over 90 of you on at the moment. If you can smash that like button, if we can get it up to 60, that would be amazing. Leave comments in the comment section as well. I interact there as I do these videos too. But let me know what you think. The question really here is, now that he's in, okay, look, we have to try and make the best of a really bad situation. The question is, do you think he'll do a good job? Yes, no. If not, why? And are you disappointed that we can't push through to a general election right now, although it is in their power to grant or agree to call a general election, which they're not going to do? But I'd love to know what you think. Love to hear your thoughts. Thanks again, guys. I will speak to you probably a bit later on once we've got a little bit more news, and we can have a little conversation there. But catch you in a bit.